Hello and welcome from wherever you are joining and whatever time zone you are in the world. It's a delight to have you here today, as well as Gemma Kelly from Infradian Life, where we are going to be talking about preparing your eggs for freezing and some of the best practices to introduce into your life, not just now for this time of freezing your eggs, but also into the future when we're going to be bridging the gap into a potential beautiful, viable pregnancy for you. So thank you for joining, Gemma. How are you today?
Hi, Helen. I'm really happy to be here. I first want to ask you about the industry of egg freezing, because it is an industry, right? It's $1 billion industry. Why can't we just go in and get our eggs taken out and then just hope for the best?
Yeah, okay. All right. That's a bit of a bout flip. Let's run with it. First and foremost, I remember in 2019 being in a doctor's surgery and having a Sunrise show come up and saying that by the year 2030, the egg freezing industry is going to be a $20 billion industry. And my jaw just fell to the ground because I've been in the fertility space for about 15 years and working, started off working in an IVF clinic as a lifestyle trainer, etc., and have worked with people in private practice as well. And it was a phenomenal statistic that just went on the screen. And what I started thinking about was how are they going to get from this to that in just 12 years here in Australia when we've got X amount of women in their fertile years? That is very, very ambitious. But what I found since then is I was just working in the fertility space, but I'm having more and more women contacting me saying, I need to actually access this information for egg freezing later on down the track. So we're set up for helping women freeze their eggs for fertility, which was going to happen within a few months. But now we're extending that. Well, the IVF process is extending that out for years to come. And so there is a very, very big gap from what we're doing now and women that are trying to work with their lifestyle factors, their period health, and trying to get their bodies prepared for pregnancy with a fresh or a frozen embryo, but within months of a process, because they want to get pregnant sooner rather than later, as opposed to chronologically freezing time, space, quality of eggs, but you're also freezing your overall health of what you're going to be passing on to your baby now to when that gets reintroduced into your body 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 15 years from now. Where is your body going to be at that time point when we've got to be able to bridge the gap of health and a woman's health to be able to support a viable pregnancy when a woman is ready for that to take place.
Mm-hmm. It's crazy how big this industry is and how it's kind of preying on our fears, right? Of maybe we won't be able to do something down the line, and it really takes our power away. And I think why I love talking to you is you really you give people their power back, and you say it is about more than just taking the drugs and getting the eggs out. It's so much more than that, and you can really help the outcome of this process to be amazing and to end up with a baby in the end, right?
Yeah, right. The success is here. It's worldwide. We've seen so many beautiful babies being born through IVF. So it is a technology that is here, that is lends to a lot of hope for people, and it's brilliant. And it also, I remember when I was working in the pharmaceutical industry as a manager, and also working in the IVF clinic as their lifestyle trainer, I had one of my staff members diagnosed with a very aggressive form of breast cancer. She came back from her honeymoon, and it was her husband that discovered a breast lump literally was growing aggressively. And she came into the office, had to tell me what was going on for her, which was quite tragic. And it was, I'm now being asked to freeze my eggs, and I don't know if I want to do that. So there are many different reasons why women go to freeze their eggs. And way back then, the protocol wasn't for freezing now for later on, like a superannuation, just to make sure that you've got that opportunity, which is great for many, many women to use it. So let's talk today about how we can use what works in the fertility space. And I know with the work that you do, Gemma, through Infradian Life and period health, let's bridge this together today. So we're giving the women the artillery that they have for them to be able, and for women to be able to prepare their bodies for egg freezing now, and also what to look out for later on in the future. Yeah.
Yes,
so
yeah.
So let's do that.
Mm-hmm.
So I find that if we can touch on 3 things today for our listeners to walk away with, I think this will be magic. And that is, how long should women be preparing their bodies for egg collection? And that is exactly the same thing for if they were going to go for a natural fertility. Because don't forget, what we're talking about here is splitting off a biological process through cryogenics. So where things would happen instantly within microseconds within the body, where we're pausing through freezing time and space. But then we also need to be able to, as we've got a defrost process, well, what has happened to the body? What has happened to the home in that particular case? Yeah. So let's talk about that. Number 2, let's talk about the number one mistake that women can make when they go onto the journey of egg freezing. And number 3 will be on cyclical living. How does that sound?
Yeah, that sounds great.
Yeah, beautiful. First and foremost, I'd love us to chat about how long is a good time for freezing eggs. I normally say about 4 months. I know it takes about 100 days for, if we talk about the epigenetics, and if we talk about, like from stem cells being formed through, but 4 months is an ideal time to be able to prepare your body, your health, and your hormones for egg freezing. And I know for myself that people are coming in and they're going, from if a woman is phoning IVF today and she's at a certain part of her cycle, within a month she could be having her eggs being frozen. So IVF are not geared up. It's not they're not dietitians, they're not lifestyle trainers, just like I am not an IVF specialist. I'm not a fertility specialist. We've all got our specialist field, but how can we work together? This is the conversation today, is how can we work together to bridge all the missing gaps, so then our women who are making these choices are making them more robust with a lot more information at hand. Because I have women calling me and going, oh, I can jump in within a month. What do I need to do? And so if women have got predisposed medical conditions, well, we want them to take care of themselves a little bit more than that 1 month. Would you agree, Gemma?
Yeah, absolutely. A month is not much is going to change in a month. And I know that from working with women and helping them fix their periods. There are very few people who see changes in 1 month or 2 months. It's always at that 3 to 4 month mark where we start seeing changes. So yeah, whether it is preparing for taking your eggs out, or for general fertility, you wanting to become pregnant, or in my case, and where I help people, is fixing their period problems, it really is that 100 days that it takes the egg to come to full maturity is how long minimum it's going to take for your body to be prepared and to be in the healthiest state that it can be when it comes to the point. And on top of that, and you kind of mentioned this, if you are a person with PCOS, endometriosis, adenomyosis, or even thyroid issues, it's probably going to take a little bit longer. And that's because all of these things also affect the menstrual cycle and our hormones.
Yeah, beautiful, beautiful. So let's dive a little bit deeper with that as well. So infradian rhythm, I mean, I know that infradian life is what you call your business, and infradian rhythm and circadian rhythms. More people are familiar with a circadian rhythm than they are with infradian rhythm. So let's talk about the infradian rhythm.
So the infradian rhythm is the biological name for your menstrual cycle. Your menstrual cycle is this repeating pattern, and it repeats monthly. And there's 4 separate phases in your infradian rhythm, and depending on where you are, you're going to feel different, and that's because our hormones affect our mood. The best way I like to describe this is, like, everybody knows the circadian rhythm, right? Everybody knows when you don't sleep, you don't feel good the next day. Well, the truth is, if you don't rest in your menstrual phase, you're not going to feel good just before you get your next period in the PMS zone. And so when you start to live in sync with your cycle, don't push yourself beyond where your body wants to go in the menstrual phase. On the flip side of that, when you're ovulating, you're going to have so much energy to do all the things that you want to do that you potentially missed out on in the menstrual phase.
Yeah.
When you start to understand this energy pattern, you start to live in sync with it. And then you can also start to sync your exercise to this infradian rhythm, and also your diet. And when you start to do all of these things, your hormones will start to balance themselves and work beautifully.
Yay, yay, all for that. Now, in this process of egg freezing, what we're suggesting is, if you can grant yourself 4 months as a middle of the road in preparing your body for your egg collection, that would be absolutely gold. It would be the advice that both of us would give. Because if we think about the IVF process, they're targeting the follicle phase and the ovulation phase of the process. They're not targeting luteal. They're not targeting menses or the menstruating period phase. So adding the extra stimulus of the hormones at that particular time, like, that's going to be the finale of the show. Yeah. Now, if you're taking care of your body, your recovery is going to be a lot better, and you're going to be able to go back into syncing into your hormonal profile thereafter for life, yeah, for the period of life. Because as we mentioned earlier, the process that I want you to consider is, we've got a biological process in a split second that is quantum time frame cryogenically separated out. And you're doing life in that time. So we want to, when we're able to bridge everything back in again, everything that you learn and do for that egg freezing phase, we want you to be able to do that for your fertile years, whether you were choosing to have a pregnancy or not, doesn't matter, that's choice. And so, but the way that we deal and work with our menstrual health is not just for having a baby or not having a baby. It helps the health of our body, our brain, our bone health, our heart health, well into our older years as well. So let's not just think about this one part. It is a it's not a sprint, it's a long-term race in our fertile years. So working with your infradian rhythm, working with your menstrual health cycle, this is just one episode. And I want women, this is what we bang on about, this is what we advocate, is having a healthy lifestyle to support you throughout that whole time. So then when the egg freezing does become a thought out process, that you're able to have a more successful chance at a viable pregnancy.
Yes.
So shall we dive into some of the fundamentals?
Yes.
Let's dive into it. All right. I know that I love and I've worked with clients on parts of the cycles with the infradian rhythm being exercise, and we both do nutrition, and there's other elements that you do. So shall we just briefly run through some of the categories that our listeners need to review to have healthy cycles?
Yeah, I love this.
Yeah, beautiful. All right. I'll start off with exercise. Now, in the fourth phase, so exercise, it's known that it does affect our hormones. It can affect our hormones in a positive way, and it can affect our hormones in a not so positive way. Now, we know this because there's athletes and there's people that do excessive workouts where they end up with no periods and irregular periods. That, my friends, affects your hormones, which affects your fertility health, full stop. On the other side, we've got people that aren't so active, or people that have got PCOS, that also affects their hormone levels. So they need to be exercising differently to someone that has no periods, that we need to try and have that, bring their exercise back on track and online. So we want to try and have women being in a normal weight range through their fertile years, and especially when they are going to be going for pregnancy and when they are going to be going for an egg freezing process. We want to be able to be in the normal range. Top end, I'll just, it's exercise prescription. So it's like you've got a personal trainer, but for your fertility and for your fertility markers, your egg freezing fertility markers, and getting pregnant. So I do that. That's my specialty. It's like being a personal trainer for those parts of your life. If I can tick it off in the infradian rhythm, I would also say that in what women aren't doing, and this is the problem, is that they're training exactly the same way or not training at all. So they're not realizing that it's affecting their hormones. So in the follicular phase, you can do more strength-based training. In the ovulation phase, I'd say dance more. In the luteal phase, which is between ovulation and the menstrual bleed, I'd say things like Tabata or circuit training, higher repetitions, lower weights, and also rest. Rest on the tail end before your period starts, and rest during your period if that's what you need to do as well. So that's what I've got to add for exercise prescription, because the problem is women are just either not training, or they're thinking that the exercises that they are doing are A-OK, and it may be, but if you're predisposed with conditions, then it's not. And I'll add to that, I'm banging on here, I'm really on my high horse. And I'll add to that, when women are being stimulated and heavily stimulated with follicles, stimulating hormone, etc., their ovaries increase by about 5 times more than what is normal. And we might think that's no big deal, but it actually is a big deal, because we could be doing certain exercises like weighted twists, like having a weight plate and doing abdominal twists. That's just one example. Or we could be in a yoga class doing an inversion, and a woman can suffer ovarian torsion, which is basically a twisting of the ovaries, which needs hospital and medical attention. So women are not told, I know this because I tell them when they do come and see me, I give them guides about exercises that are supportive and the exercises that are not supportive while they're going through stimulating hormones for egg freezing. And the other thing is, we do not want to do high intensity training just before egg retrieval. And there's a lot of other things as well. So I'll just pop that out there for the listeners, that there are things that we might be doing in our everyday life that might be affecting our process and the success of what happens with the quality of eggs and also your body as well.
100%. And like, we live in a circadian world. Most scientific studies are done on men or postmenopausal women. I don't really know of many fitness instructors, personal trainers who understand the menstrual cycle. So if you are in a stage of your life where you are wanting to have your eggs extracted or get pregnant, you need to start to understand that exercising in sync with your cycle it's a requirement. I'm just going to say that. It's not even like a nice to have. Like, you need to work with Helen. You need to understand that you can't do everything that your male personal trainer is telling you to do. And you shouldn't be doing everything that they're telling you to do, because they don't understand the menstrual cycle. I mean, for so many of us, we don't understand our menstrual cycle. This is new information that's been coming to light in the last decade or so. And working with someone who understands your body and your infradian rhythm, the month-long pattern that you have, is vital for you having the outcomes that you want when it comes to extracting eggs or getting pregnant.
Gemma, you make an awesome point, and what I'd like to share here and also to the listeners is that the volume of what we're going to be seeing through over the next decade and decades of women signing up to get their eggs frozen and being a big period before ready for a viable pregnancy to take place. This is new medical technology, right? That's been introduced. So let's not wait until there is a problem. So the horse has left the station and has left the stables, for then a bucket load and trillions of dollars to go in and then re-educate our women, etc. What we're talking about here, so what Gemma and I are talking about here, is what is already in place and working with the women that we work with that are on a fertility journey or do have period problems and period irregularities, that we're actually using these fundamentals to help ourselves now. So let's not wait until 5-10 years down the track when we've got millions of women that are left in like a gap, and we're trying to fulfill the gap. This is why we want to have these conversations today and educate the women the way that we're educating. Shall we talk about nutrition?
Yeah, let's jump in.
Okay. From your perspective, when you're working with infradian rhythm and menstrual health cycles, what are your go-tos that you share with your women about having better health that affects their hormones through nutrition?
So there's a couple things to touch on here. Our metabolic health, in particular, our blood sugar balance throughout all 4 phases of the cycle, it's really important to understand how it's going to affect our hormones. So really, really specifically, after you ovulate, so the middle of your menstrual cycle until you bleed, your menstrual phase, you actually need more calories. Your body needs more food, because after ovulation, your body raises your body temperature, and in order to do that, it uses more energy. So you need to eat more. It's as simple as that. And for so many people who are like trying to be fit and are in a calorie deficit, and I've seen so many people have really hard time with fertility, with feeling good at that time of the month, because they're restricting the food that they eat. So yes, there are 4 phases of the cycle, but I want to be really specific and say the second half of your cycle, your luteal phase is when you need to eat more. So that's metabolic health. Then we can talk about nutrition. Your body needs many minerals and nutrients in order just to function. So eating vegetables and complex carbohydrates at every meal, it's such an opportunity for you just to feed your body at every meal. So complex carbohydrates, also having a really healthy source of fat is really vital because your hormones are made of fat. And then also having protein in every meal to help your muscles repair, and eating that all in one meal is going to keep you full as well for hopefully 4 to 5 hours, which again comes back to your metabolic health. Awesome. And I know, Helen, you talk about eating 9 veggies a week and not just sticking with the same old stuff every single day.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the go-tos, and I'm actually, beautiful. One of the go-tos that I bring to the table to the plate, when I educate is 9 different types of vegetables a week. So go for the crunch, go for the color, and go for the texture. And so when I look at a woman's food diary and she's got mashed potato, jacket potato, potato chips, scallop potato, that's 1 vegetable. So potato done 4 ways is 1 vegetable. So that's just a very simple indication of just keeping your, minimum of 9 vegetables, minimum of 3 fruits, have lots of fiber in your diet with every meal. And when we now lay that on with the preparation of egg freezing and what happens after the egg freezing, this is where it's really, really important. So your liver is overworked because it's overstimulated. So say, for example, when we work, I know, Gemma, you and I work with women, as we said, PCOS, endo, thyroid, metabolism, just to name a few. And when we work with also estrogen dominance in the body, that means we've got a lot of estrogen in the body. It means that the body then needs to try and match the level of progesterone in the second half of the cycle to have that cycle balanced out. So when we've got follicle stimulating hormones, and when we've got the whole process of estrogen and trying to stimulate the ovaries for that one period of time where we take out a woman's eggs, then there is a massive deficit that is left in that luteal phase. The body is naturally made to then just go, I need to raise up and create as much progesterone as we have estrogen to be able to work out the cycle, or else we're going to start having imbalances of hormones that might take quite a few months to come back into regulation. So very, very important to have lots of high-grade fiber, no alcohol. Just don't do anything that's going to add more pressure to your liver, because we want to try and get your body back into equilibrium, back into normality as quickly as possible. So by taking on some of this advice before, after the crescendo of releasing the eggs, as well as afterwards, we want to try and get your body back into that balance and equilibrium so it's not left in deficit. So this is why we're sharing what we're sharing. So we've touched on exercise, we've touched on nutrition. Let's touch on environmental factors and quality of eggs, Gemma, because in the industrial age, we have got so many more chemicals that are in our food source, our water source, air source, like petrochemicals, etc., through the atmosphere. And there are a lot of these are endocrine disruptors. So that is also affecting the quality of the eggs even prior to that period of cryogenics. So what else can women do to support themselves?
I mean, I would start just looking at the products in your life. If anything that's been made conventionally has likely got parabens, phthalates, in it. These things can mimic your hormones. They can attach to cell receptors. They just confuse everything. They also need to go through the liver to be detoxed. So it's bad news all around. So endocrine disrupting chemicals can be found, like I said, in the products in your home. So your makeup, your shampoo, your cleaning products. And then we can even talk about pesticides. So pesticides on our foods can not only disrupt our guts, which is bad news for hormones, but also screw with our hormonal balance down the line. And then as well as that, plastics in your house, in the takeaway food containers that you have, plastic drink bottles, all of these things, little by little, add up to not great news for your hormones. So doing what you can when things run out, I would suggest there's a couple websites that I can share with you, maybe in the show notes, that have done all the hard work for you. They have researched the ingredients in these products, and they've done all the hard work, and they know that the products do not contain endocrine disrupting chemicals.
Beautiful. I am sure that our listeners will welcome that information. So beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. I just want to loop back, because I just remembered that one thing that I do want to share with the power of knowledge that I want to be able to arm women with. And that is that we talk about the 4 months as being a primary period of preparing your body. And we talk about the cryogenics into the future and then bringing everything back together. Now, the way your menstrual health today as a menstrual marker, and is a result of the way that you've fed, rested, not rested, stresses, is all a result of that can be shown in through your menstrual markers. But not only that, it's your uterine lining, of course, your uterine lining. Now, when you are pregnant and you have got a viable pregnancy, your uterine lining is the primary food source for the embryo's life for about the first 11 weeks, before the umbilical cord is fully functioning to have the giving and the receiving through the mother's blood flow and nutrient source to the baby, as well as the waste material that goes back out. And it takes about 11 weeks for that to take place. So in that time, what happens is the embryo, the growing fetus, feeds on the glycogen and the material of the uterine lining. So the richer that is in nutrient dense, beautiful, which is why we speak about the food and the fiber and the fats, the richer that is. So just think about, I'd like you to think about that when you see your uterine lining drop out of your body, that is the food source, the potential food source of a future pregnancy. So how well have you eaten? How well have you rested? How well have you exercised to bring oxygen to your body, to your uterus, to release stagnation and to also let the body naturally go into its state of contraction? Like, these are all a cumulative result. So what you do now to prepare is like the preparation for the big race later on in life, when you are choosing to use one of your eggs for a viable pregnancy. And what you do now and how you treat your life to when you are planning on getting pregnant, we want those same fundamentals. They are not going to change. They have been around for millennia. It's not going to change. We're just making it available more and more to you to be able to have the success that you need moving forward. So I wanted to bring that into the equation. Gemma, shall we talk about the number one mistake that women can make during the egg freezing process?
Yes. What is the
Yeah.
number one mistake that women can make?
Yeah, and that is the freeze and forget. It is not an absolute superannuation to having a successful outcome at the end. And I'm not here to be grim and dim. I'm just here to talk about what happens in the fertility space for women on an everyday level, okay? And that is that, there's about a 1 in 25 chance of women getting pregnant naturally, or else we'd have a lot more pregnant women being around, right? But now that has actually decreased because there's a lot more infertility that has crept into our human species, not population, but species. Like World Health Organization has infertility worldwide sitting at 15%. Now, I'm a scientist by education. I used to work in pharma. So I'd say we've got an epidemic on our hands. Like that's the real deal, is that there are a lot of people hurting around the world when they are trying to get pregnant and they cannot get pregnant. And infertility is also now considered one of the highest stresses up there with finding out you've got a terminal illness or a death of a loved one. Like the way that it affects our quality of life, they call it fertility quality of life, the score is quite high when infertility takes place. So what we don't want women to do is freeze and forget. Like, I've frozen my eggs, sweet. Because what happens through the process, Gemma, is when a woman is waking up after having a cycle done, the nurses will put the number on their hand so they get to see the number. And some women will go, wow, fantastic, I've got 30 eggs. That's freaking amazing. I'm set. Now, naturally in our body, if those 30 follicles would have come to life, but not 30 follicles turn into 30 ovum, which turn into 30 pregnancies. We're a human race where we support one pregnancy well. There are twins out there, there's triplets occasionally, and then we've got all the rest, which are very, very rare. So in our human species, we're pretty much designed to have one live birth at a time. That's the normal. So I forgot where I was going with this.
Well, I know that you've seen firsthand that just because like you've worked with women who have had a whole bunch of eggs frozen and come to, actually using them, none of them have been viable. And that's devastating.
That is devastating. Yeah, thank you for that. So we've got to go for quality over quantity, because it's not the quantity of eggs, because through the process, and I know they explain this very well when you go through IVF, so I'm just skimming through it, is that you'll have those eggs that have been stimulated. Not all of them are going to survive the freezing process. Yeah. So you might have, yes, we've got 40 out right now, but they need to be frozen. They need to survive the actual freezing state. They need to survive the thawing state. They need to survive the embryonic IVF, the IVF state. They need to then survive the 3 to 5 day embryonic growth rate, and then they need to survive an implantation. They need to survive the implantation, right? And so I've seen things from all different parts of the spectrum. So having a lot of eggs to having a lot of embryos, like maybe even 8 embryos fertilized. But then by the time it comes to implantation, so putting an embryo back into the body, every day that goes by, unfortunately, there are embryos that die in that time. Yeah. And so then in that process, you might then, this is when they'll say, we're going to put 2 in there. It's the best chance that we put 2 in there for survival, or 1 in there. Some women have none survive the process. And so they would think that, great, I had 30 or 40 eggs, and it's just the once and done, it's a freeze and forget. And I'm not even adding in that you're going to come up and pick up this process in 10 years from now. I'm talking about women that are wanting to get pregnant right now, that go through that exact same process that you're going to be going through, preparing to freeze your eggs, using them at a later stage, right? And so that's devastating. It's utterly gut-wrenching and devastating to see and go through and help women through that emotional state and well-being of keeping the hope alive and the renewed hope, when it's like, it's only just going to take one, my love. It's only just going to take one. This is why we need to manipulate. And when I say manipulate, I'm talking in a positive way, is to manipulate environmental factors, hormonal factors in our body to make that implantation be a viable pregnancy and live birth as well.
And this is exactly why we're here, because it is those lifestyle, nutrition, exercise interventions that are going to give you the best opportunity to have healthy, viable eggs.
So shall we wrap it up and just give our listeners just some take-home points again based on our conversations? Yeah. So we would both agree that give yourself, if you've got a chance of time, give yourself 4 months to improve your health and your lifestyle, and that is quality of exercise with the 4 phases of the menstrual cycle, eating with the 4 phases of the menstrual cycle. There is a science to it. It's not just wishy-washy. Reducing your environmental chemicals and stress factors, absolutely. This is what we both do, love, educate on. Don't think of it as a set and forget or a freeze and forget. Use these principles throughout your whole life, to be, your menstrual years and your fertility years, to give yourself the best chance at living the most optimal, healthy lifestyle that you can. If you are suffering period pain and period problems, please reach out to Gemma. She is awesome at having programs and lifestyle choices to help you individuate and help bring your period and menstrual wellness back into calibration. And anything else that I've missed?
And for you, for all the people who are at the stage of their life where they're thinking about having their eggs extracted, or if you are, on your fertility journey and you really want support with exercise and nutrition, Helen is the person to go to. It's all well and good to know these things, but to actually implement these things into your life and get all the other things out of your way so you can actually focus on this really important part of your life. Like, if you've made the decision that you want to have a baby, it can be, for some people, it can be a really difficult road. And Helen is here to support you every step of the way, emotionally, with exercise, with nutrition, literally every step of the way.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for the plug, my friend. Really appreciate that. Appreciate it. And yeah, what we haven't touched on as well is, I'm an intimacy and a relationship coach. So I actually do work with women as well as couples on the journey to help guide them through. And because I've worked with IVF as well, it's I'm able to bridge that gap and bring a holistic approach to mind, body, spirit to make this an empowering journey for you. So yes.
Love that. And where can everybody find you and get all the...
We'll just put all our resources in the show notes, because I'd love what you said before, and I've seen those websites and I work with those websites. So I really, really love what you have shared with us as well. So we'll just pop where people can find us and get more information down below. How does that sound?
Perfect.
Excellent. All right, my friend, absolute pleasure talking to you again.
Um,
To the viewers, I hope that you have got some really good information out of this. Let us know below. Let's keep the conversation going. We'll just keep checking in. So we'll be able to apply directly, because any question that you ask, know that it'll be able to help other sisters around the world as well. So
100%.
thank you so much.
Thank you.
All power to you.